Knew me, they really wouldn't like me. I've really messed up. Connectedness is the opposite. When we feel connected, we feel worthwhile, we feel loved. And almost every study on mind-body medicine has shown the incredible power of social support and of feeling connected to other people. One study of the immune system, for example, showed that people who were isolated, people just like you and me, they gave them a paper and pencil test. They said, how many social connections do you have? People who had less than the average had a significant lowering of immune function. But people who said, I've got lots of people to talk to, lots of people to be with, these people had a healthy immune function. And almost all of the studies mimic that particular kind of study. So sometimes I think, gee, we think about wellness and we think about let's get up at 4 in the morning and go to the gym and then eat our Wheaties and then go to work and we'll all be alone and we'll all be miserable. So when I get on the phone with my friends, I think now I'm doing something for my immune response. Now I'm talking. This is good. But that's so important, social contact. Now, I want to give you a way of looking at medicine that will take all of this into account. And this is the work of a very dear friend of mine, an internist and a writer whose name is Dr. Larry Dossey, D-O-S-S-E-Y. He's also the editor-in-chief of a wonderful journal called Alternative Therapies. He said, if we really want to look and see what is the medicine of the future, we have to look back to the past and say, what was medicine like 100 years ago when scientific medicine first came? And he says that's the first era, E-R-A, the first era or time frame of medicine. And that was our understanding of the body as a machine, which has been incredibly powerful. For example, it was only the 1920s when insulin was discovered. And you think about that. People with insulin-dependent diabetes can now live. Prior to the replacement of that, they couldn't live a normal life. You think about vitamin C being discovered at about the same time. Remember, people used to actually die from scurvy. This was an amazing thing. Or heart transplants, lung transplants. So that gave us the idea that the body was a machine. And it's given rise to an incredibly powerful form of medicine. Era 2 medicine, however, is mind-body medicine. And what Larry Dossey says is, because Era 1 medicine was so powerful with these specific cures, we forgot about the effect of the mind on the body. We let go of that. And now we realize, wow, 75 to 90% of our doctor's visits are for mind, body, and stress-related things. The third era of medicine has to do with spirituality in medicine. And that's a fascinating kind of topic. So what is spirituality? What is spirituality? I would say it's our deepest sense of belonging and connectedness. That for me, a spiritual experience I had as a 10-year-old in my spontaneous remission was a sense of feeling so loved and connected to the universe that that's what I have always thought of as spirituality. And of course that's what religions are trying to bring us back to. Sometimes they succeed greatly and sometimes not. But that's the point of spirituality. Now, if Era 2 medicine, mind-body medicine, says your mind affects your body, Era 3 medicine says something truly radical. Era 3 medicine says we are all interconnected. All our minds are one mind, which means that your mind affects my body and my mind affects your body. That's really radical, isn't it? And it sounds most peculiar. Now don't forget, I love science. And I have to say that I'm a skeptic. And a skeptic is a person who keeps an open mind without letting their brain fall out? Now, is there evidence to support this contention? And I would say, yeah, there's some really, really good evidence to support it. Let me give you just two tiny little studies about minds being interconnected. One of them was done by a woman called Marilyn Schlitz, and it has to do with something probably you've all experienced. Were you ever riding down the highway in your car and you were sure someone was staring at you? Yes? And you felt compelled to turn around and see them. And then they get so embarrassed if they get caught. That's always fun, that moment of... Now, here's the thing. How do you know that somebody's looking at you? What's the inner cue? And she found that in all the cultures of the world, people had the same experience. It wasn't bound to this culture. Here was the experiment she did. She took a video camera and she would videotape a subject, and in a room, another room, there would be the monitor. And then, while they were being videotaped, she would either stare at the monitor or not stare at the monitor. Meanwhile, the person being videotaped was connected to a biofeedback equipment, which essentially monitored the equivalent of, are the hairs standing up on the nape of your neck, right? Now, at a level that was highly statistically significant, the hairs stood up on the napes of the neck when somebody was staring at their picture in a distant room. Now, that's interesting, isn't it? My mother always used to tell me that when your ears burned red, somebody was talking about you. Apparently your mothers told you that too. Which, of course, I used to dismiss as highly silly. However, I'm sure before long we'll have an experiment that shows something just like that. But do you see the radical implications of that? If somebody is thinking about you, at some level you receive it. Some of the great physicists talked about this, the unity of our minds. Even Einstein said the idea that we're separate from one another is really an optical delusion of consciousness. At some level, all minds are interconnected. So, think about this. If all of your friends are sitting around saying, boy, she looks tired lately, this is probably not a good thing. Or if you have a physician who is afraid of the very illness that you have and thinks the prognosis is bad and empathizes with you, but is sending that kind of negativity. Those are the kinds of experiments, actually, which are being done now. So the idea is this. The idea is not that we use the power of the mind and we ignore Era 1 medicine. That would be foolish. We have to put all of these together. And that's what people are trying to do, to say what's a great system of medicine when it takes into account the whole human being and what we need for wellness and what we need for happiness, what we need to be fulfilled. Plus it gives us the best in medicine and surgery and techniques, and it incorporates even things like the power of prayer. It's been amazing to me to see the amount of experimental literature on prayer and the interest in spirituality and healing that's grown over the past 15 years or so. Even at Duke University, there's an enormously powerful center that looks at spirituality and medicine. And hundreds of studies have come out of that Duke Center. One of the studies on prayer that I found particularly interesting actually has recently been replicated. And in science, that's what we like to do. We like to say, it wasn't a fluke. We did it again. We got the same result. There's something here. And the particular study that's recently been replicated was a study on prayer that got rid of the placebo effect. It had to do with people who'd had heart attacks, and they came to an intensive care unit and were randomly assigned either to get regular medical care or to get regular medical care, plus they were prayed for by a group of people who just knew them by name. That's all, a prayer group. When neither the patient nor the staff knew if they were being prayed for. When they went to analyze the data at the end of the study, the group that was prayed for did better on 17 different measures. Isn't that amazing? They got out of the hospital sooner. That always makes the insurance companies happy. But they had fewer cases of pneumonia. They needed less medication for pneumonia. They made less calls to nursing. This kind of information is what comes out of these studies. That's pretty interesting. The idea here is not that we pray ourselves well and ignore medicine. The idea is really to use the whole system. So I have a little story about that. About 13 years ago, I was with a group of AIDS patients, and I was talking to them really about death and about the fact that none of us knows when our last moment is. And I said to them, you think that death is close for you. It could be closer for me. I could have an accident on my way home tonight. I had a head-on collision on my way home that night, and my seat belt held, but the shoulder harness failed, and my head went like that into the steering wheel, and when it came up, it had been unhinged like the hood of a car. This is where endorphins come in. I felt no pain. The paramedics came, and I said, if you guys would just give me a lift home and a Band-Aid, I'd be happy here. And they said, we don't think so. See this trauma board we're about to strap you to? What hospital will you go to? Believe me, I did not say, take me to the local meditation center. I said, take me to the best hospital that has the best plastic surgeon. Era 1 medicine came right to mind. It was just what the doctor ordered. And that's what I did. I was taken to the hospital, and I knew a wonderful surgeon. God bless him, he's passed on now. He was a fabulous human being. He did everything right. He used all 3 eras of medicine. The first thing he saw when I came in there was not a destroyed nose. It was a human being. It was a woman whose face had been destroyed. And he knew what to do. He knew some people like to know a lot medically and some like to know a little. So he says to me exactly this. He said, some people like to know the whole extent of their injuries. Others would rather not. Which kind of person are you? I said, I want to know the whole thing. He got a mirror. He showed me the whole thing and explained just what he was going to do. Then he said to me, we get all ready, for the surgery to happen. And he said, there are people who like to pray before surgery, and there are people who aren't into that. What kind of person are you? I said, a prayer would be really good. Then he said, there are people who like to pray alone, and people who like... Very respectful. People who like to pray with their doctors. What kind of person are you? So I thought, what an amazing thing. A chance to pray with my doctor. And I got to pray that his hands would be guided, and that he would be skillful, and that whatever the right outcome was, he would be an instrument of that. And he got to pray what was in his heart for me. And boy, that bonds you. You're never the same after you pray with somebody. It's an absolutely incredible thing. And that was perfect, and he was a perfect surgeon. Best plastic surgeon in Boston. Don't I look pretty good?
You do.
Yeah. Thank you. It took 2 surgeries to accomplish this. But he always used to say on my checkups, we had a kind of hidden helper. We had a hidden helper. And he was great with the mind-body stuff too. He said, you teach stress reduction, but I don't know if you can do it for yourself. And when people call you on the phone and they want to take your time, can you tell them, no, I need to recover? And he was really great with that and helping me set limits. So I thought he's the perfect modern era 1, 2, and 3 physician. And that's what we're all looking for. There's a big difference between curing and healing. And what curing is obviously having our whole function restored. And when we're sick, isn't that what we want? I mean, that's what's in everybody's heart. May I be cured, may life go back to what it was. Healing is a totally different thing. Healing is a restoration of that sense of connectedness. That sense of restoration of connecting with yourself happens oftentimes to people really who are ill because they get their priorities in order. And whatever your values are, you say, well, love is my primary value. And then you look at your life and you find you're working like 70, 80 hours a week and you have no time for your loved ones. That's not being in good connection with yourself. Your inside and your outside don't match. When your inside and outside are disparate, that's what stress is. I'll tell you, I've seen people give up their jobs in a heartbeat when suddenly they're faced with, am I going to survive this? And they come into coherence, into integrity. Those are all the words. That's healing. That's wholeness. The old Anglo-Saxon word for healing is halen, and it means wholeness. And we've all felt that same sense of wholeness when we've been able to let go of the masks that hide us from other people and figure, I may not be perfect, but I am who I am. And as soon as you do that, people just love you unconditionally. It's an amazing thing. It's only when we're trying to be perfect, I think, that other people tend to judge us and we judge ourselves. And that ability to be present with other people, to forgive other people, to forgive ourselves, to feel a connection to some greater source, to know our place in this world between the earth and the sky, that's healing. And it can happen at any time during life. It often happens as a process of people who are just stressed and they're looking for wellness. They've had enough. They've bottomed out with their busy life and they reconstruct. It can also happen when people are dying. That's an interesting thing, huh? To heal as you die. Because death isn't the enemy. It's just the natural part of life. When my son Justin over here and Andre over here were 13 years younger, you, Justin, were 20. You, Andre, were 16 years old. Your grandma Lily died. And we experienced with her the last day of her life what healing was. It was, it's extraordinary. Why do we have to wait a lifetime sometimes to tell people what is really in our hearts? It's funny. Stephen Levine, who's a kind of, quote, expert on death and dying, said, if you were going to die in an hour, who would you call? And why are you waiting? So that's the truth of it. So there we were with my mother Lillian, their grandma Lily, and we had quite an experience on every level. First, we had a typical modern medical experience. Modern medicine does not understand death and dying well. It doesn't do so well with it. Thank God for hospice. But there we were in the hospital, whole family gathered to say goodbye. They take my mother away to do some test for internal bleeding. 4 p.m, she's not back. And they finally look at me, they say, Joan, you have a white coat. Wherever she is, go spring her. So I went. There I am in the bowels of the hospital, nuclear medicine. And God bless her, there is my mother dying, alone on a gurney, where she's been waiting all day because nuclear medicine was busy. I mean, that's when a hospital is not a healing place, for sure. And I say to the doctor, this is cruel, and I'm taking her. You got to be assertive. Going to steal the mother from the test. So I get ready to steal her, and the doctor says, she can't go. We have to have a diagnosis. My mother, God bless her, she's practically dead, opens up one roomy eye, and she says, a diagnosis? You mean I've been laying here all day, and all you needed was a diagnosis? And the doctor said, yes. She said, why didn't you just ask me? She says, I'm dying. That's the diagnosis. The doctor actually couldn't argue with this. My mother was formidable to the last moment, formidable. But there, I grabbed the gurney, and I figure we've got 7 floors to heal our life. That's all. 7 floors. My mother knows this too. She looks at me, not a woman of many emotional words, because I think her generation wasn't. It was just a different time. And she says to me, I've made a lot of mistakes as a mother. Can you forgive me? Isn't that all it takes? And then, of course, I thought of all the times as a daughter that I had not been present, of all the things that I could have done differently. And I said, I've made a lot of mistakes too. I can forgive you. Can you forgive me? And that's all it took. I mean, there was a moment of healing, of complete connection between 2 souls. Then I pressed my luck. This was interesting. I mean, now like at this point. And I said, I'd like to exchange a soul quality. This was not a person who exchanged soul qualities. And she looked at me, she said, I have always admired your compassion. Could I have it? And I'd never ever felt that she'd even noticed that I was compassionate. So that was amazing. And she had courage. Oh, what courage. And I asked her for that. And she's been giving it to me for years. It's been absolutely great. However, it was round about the middle of the night after this. Got back up to the room, actually. She did this with everybody. You remember? Just took a minute, but finished her business, came to healing. Now, Justin was amazing. At 20, he knew what everybody needs at the moment of their death. And that is, they need to know that the world was a better place somehow because they were there. And he told her, he said, Grandma, you made a difference in my life. He told her so many wonderful things. It was terrific. Then he got in bed and he held her. He held her. And he sang to her. She said, is Grandpa Eddie, that was my beloved father, will Grandpa Eddie be there when I die on the other side? So Justin figures we should sing the song that they fell in love to. So we're going, some enchanted evening. And it was something. And finally, she fell into a final drug-assisted sleep round about midnight. About 3 in the morning, we're meditating on either side of her bed. And I had a most remarkable experience. I knew I wasn't dreaming. Have any of you ever had something that seems like a dream, but you know you're not dreaming? A lot of nodding. It's a vision. We just don't have good words for what it is. But the funny sense of it is you sense that's reality. This is the dream. Yep. You just know that's much realer. And in the vision, I'm a pregnant mother giving birth. And at the same time, I'm the baby who's being born. And what's interesting is I'm conscious in both bodies. And I thought, there's that one mind. One mind in two bodies. And then it seems to me, aha, God is one big case of multiple personality disorder. That's it. Only one of us here. That's it. But it's different to know that and to feel it with every cell of your body, to really feel that. And I had then the experience of being born as the baby and all my consciousness coming into that, just like the near-death experience stories, out the tunnel and into the light. And the light, how indescribable.